This is Ryan Elliott for ID Boxing. We're in San Antonio. With me, Vadim Kornilov, manager extraordinaire. How are you, Vadim?
Very good, thank you. Very good.
That's good to hear. Busy man at the minute, just talking there. You came from Dubai, here for fight week this week. What have you been up to?
As always, just staying busy with all our guys. A lot of guys on our team, just making sure that everybody's staying in the ring and being taken care of, basically. But
Let's start with the guys on the card this weekend. I was speaking to Murodjon Akhmadaliev there the other day. He got himself a mandatory fight, Marlon Tapales. Will come on the potential undisputed fight, but what kind of challenge does he have in front of him this weekend?
I think Tapales is a very, very tough fighter. He's proven it many times and very experienced. A lot of fights. He can definitely punch, so that's always something that poses a danger in any fight. So I think it's definitely something to take a look at tomorrow. I think it'll be a very exciting night, and overall the whole show. I think with Madrimov being on there and Bam Bam and all the other guys, some good prospects on the show. So I think it'll be a very exciting night.
Is it two positives in a way for Kaka that not only does he clear a mandatory going into a potential undisputed fight, but it's a live fight as well. It's a fight that'll keep him sharp going into a potential undisputed fight.
No, 100%. I mean, it's not even like going into anything. I think this is just a big stepping stone for a young kid. I mean, Kakai's only got like 10 fights. He doesn't have that many fights, and he's still gaining experience. And with the guy that's been in there with many top guys in the division, I think Akhmadaliev, Kakai needs to prove to himself and to to everybody that he's still trying to prove to himself that he belongs at the level. You know what I mean? And I think once this fight is behind us and everything as well, I think then we can start talking about undisputed. Right now it might be a little bit preliminary in a way.
With his backstory, like I said, I was speaking to him a couple of days ago. Could you tell people a bit more that might not know just the adversity he's came through? He nearly couldn't walk again. He nearly couldn't do sport again, and here he is as a unified champion years later.
Yeah, stories like that are usually what. There's usually a story like that behind every big sports champion or somebody who's achieved a lot, because just coming out of nowhere, coming out of nothing is really what brings you the motivation and the ambition and all that drive to go to the top. And I think that that's actually something that's important to have, is that adversity that somebody has overcome in order to achieve something in life, in anything that you do.
I appreciate you in here focused on the fight this weekend. When I spoke to Eddie, he said if he wins, he actually feels like a fight against the Fulton Inoue winner might be one of the easier undisputed fights to make, because it's three guys between Kaka and between Fulton and Inoue that do seem to have a willingness to fight anyone. Do you agree?
No, 100%. Yeah, we've already been talking to Fulton many times as well, trying to make that work out as well. And from what I understand, he might be going up in weight after this. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I've heard. But the bottom line is, these guys all want to fight. They all want to, try to prove to everybody that they're the best in the division. And I do believe that there's something good coming together, because I think whoever is going to be on top is going to be, is going to be not only reigning the division, but will be, one of the pound for pound best in the sport as well. I think that type of achievement will definitely put him in the ranks, for the pound for pound ratings.
Israil Madrimov got himself a fight this weekend, but when I spoke to him, I think it's 16 months now as WBA number one. We had the two fights with Soro, which became a bit of a mess in the end. But have you had any clarification from the WBA as to what that kind of mandatory queue is going to look like?
No, as far as I know, after Tzu, there's still the IBF, right? I mean, the IBF and the WBC. So there's still 2-3 fights that need to happen before before we get to the WBA, if I'm remembering it correctly. But I'm not even, I'm not looking at those specifics. I'm just happy right now that, we're working together, and, with Matchroom, he's being taken care of, and, he's in the ring, and that's the most important thing. I mean, he's not in a rush. He still also has experience to gain and really get to that, confidence level in a way. So I think 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 fights before he fights the champion, whoever will be at that time, is okay. As long as it doesn't get past that, which would be a little, inadequate. But, Charlo's been a little bit of a lag in the division, in my opinion, and I hope that picks up right now and just starts moving ahead with fight. If he fights Zhu and then he fights another and another, it could move pretty quickly if that's what he wants.
I found it interesting you said there, look, even if we have to wait a little bit, there's not necessarily a rush. He's still fairly early in his pro career, but Israil, he was going for a world title shot from his pro debut. How important is it for you guys around him maybe just to pull the reins in a bit sometimes and to remember there's a long way to go?
No, definitely. It's never, hurrying in anything is not always good, but a lot of these kids are ambitious. They've done a lot in the amateurs, so it's not like they just got into the sport. They have enough experience in the amateurs. Most of them have 300 or more fights in the amateurs, which helps. But besides that, the professional ranks and the professional boxing overall, as a sport, it's a little bit different, even if you compare it to amateur boxing. So at the end of the day, it's never good to be in a hurry. So you're probably right. Sometimes we think about the fact that maybe, even though we believe in the kids and we believe that they can become a world champion in their first couple of fights, if that happened, it's still probably good for them to gain that experience and just, get that feel and get that confidence, get the different views of fighting different guys. Like I think with Murodjon right now, he's fighting a style that's not really a style that he's fought before. So I think all those looks at the sport really just make him more and more confident in himself and be more ready for whatever that top undisputed fight is going to be.
Just a bit on Bektemir. He's got the Rosado rematch coming up in a couple of weeks. How much do you think he learned from the first fight with Rosado and from what you've seen in his development since as well?
At the end of the day, he fought just like other guys. He's fought so many amateur fights, but again, with that, with the different gloves and with the different, power of the punch and the way the punches are landed, that all is like sometimes people don't really understand that difference and don't really consider it, but there is that big, contrast. And I think what happened with him, it wasn't inexperience, it was more like being very confident in himself, going through everybody. I'm Beck the bully, I can just run through you. But at the end of the day, in those small gloves, any punch can land the right way and it can hurt you and it can hurt anybody. And that's exactly what happened. I think now he'll just be a lot more careful and he'll be a lot smarter. But at that, you can't take anything away from Rosado. He's a strong, strong-willed fighter. He knows what he's doing. He's got the experience. So I think this is going to be a really, really good fight. But at the end of the day, we've got to avenge that. Like we weren't trying to put that off, and I'm happy that Golden Boy and the Zone and everybody and we all came together and we're going to make this happen because I think at the end of the day, if he doesn't avenge that fight, there's always going to be that question mark.
I wanted to ask you about boxing in Uzbekistan. Obviously, we've got two of the guys on the card this weekend. I read a quote from you somewhere that around 10% of the country are linked to boxing in some way. It's so big there. How do you describe what it's like over there in terms of boxing and the program they've got now as well that's seen this conveyor belt of stars?
Yeah, I've heard something like if you go walk in the street, there's like a 1 in 3 chance that you'll meet somebody who's like somehow related into boxing or is trained in boxing or something like that, which is pretty insane. It's pretty cool. But they're very into the sport. And they really like all the guys, all their amateur stars and the pro guys, obviously. And they just they follow them. They really they really like them. They'll go out into different countries and they'll try to watch them on TV. At the end of the day, that makes these guys motivated. Makes these guys want to achieve what they're achieving right now because they've got all that following and all that energy behind them.
You went back, obviously, for a show a couple of years ago now. What was that like? How big are these guys back home now?
They're just getting bigger and bigger with every fight. But, there's obviously also charisma involved. So some guys are more popular. Sometimes some guys are less popular. Like Jalolov being, like, a really, really big guy. He's very popular just because he's not a regular Uzbek. He's a big Uzbek. Like Hassan Boy, who's, like, a small kid, weight class, lower weight class, 105, 108. That really attracts the people's attention, but he's at the same time he's very exciting. He's got that, aggressive style and he really, attracts a lot of attention in the ring and outside the ring. So at the end of the day, it's just it just depends. But overall, they follow all the boxers. They follow all these guys who are like MMA guys, as far as I understand as well. A lot of the martial artists attract a lot of attention. But Akhmadaliev, with his achievement and having 2 titles, I think he's number 1 right now, and as far as how much attention he's attracting.
Just an update on Dmitry Bivol. I've been asking Frank Smith, I've been asking Eddie Hearn what's going on. They said they were going to meet with you this week. When will he be back? What are we kind of looking at right now?
Yeah, we're meeting here daily right now and talking and trying to cook something up and make this work. Obviously Mungi is still in the talks, and hopefully that can work out and maybe we can make that happen in June. But for us, it's more of an in-between. And many people are asking, why is it Munguia? Why is it this? I'm like, if you guys tell me what opponent you guys see that Dmitry should fight, Dmitry's never backed out of any fight. We're ready to fight anybody. But right now, on this side of the street, it seems like that's really the only fight that makes sense. If it doesn't work out, there's a couple of backup options, or there's thoughts about maybe just going straight into a September bout, whether it's going to be Beterbiev or Canelo. But Dmitry's calling me and telling me I want the big unification fights, and I just want to fight one of the unification fights, which right now it's either Beterbiev or Canelo. And the bottom line, I think we're going to get the bottom line by the end of this week, to be honest with you. I'm just hoping that what Canelo has been saying, if that's one option, I'm just hoping that there's any seriousness in that. I believe that he himself, he's got the character. He's proven it before in his career. He doesn't want that loss to remain and on his record and on his consciousness. So I believe that he wants it. But I'm just really, really skeptical on whether the rest of the team really wants to fight, because I don't see why they would. Why would they want to fight Bivol again?
What gives you that impression then? Is it been talks that you've had? What makes you feel that way?
That they don't want it?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of talk in the press, but there's no discussions, there's nothing serious, and it's just that, if I was on his team, I probably would be saying the same thing. I would be saying, why would you want to fight him? And now he's going in the press and he's saying that he wants to fight him at 75. That's basically a rerun of what happened last time, in my opinion, because Dmitry is willing to go to 168 to fight him. Obviously, he's enticed and motivated to do that because of the titles that he has at 168. But I think at the same time, it also gives Canelo a chance to do something new and maybe, have a weight advantage, or have, or not have a disadvantage. Because last time he said that he didn't feel like it was his weight class. I think I've heard that before. So if there's that excuse, then why go and do it again at 175? I would think it would make sense to just go in his weight class. So there's a lot of different things. And obviously the finances, that has to work out as well. Because from what I'm hearing, he wants to make more, the same or more as in the first fight. But usually if you lost the fight, usually you've got to be more generous with the opponent that's going to come back and fight you again. You know what I mean? But listen, the sport has changed, It's been a little different, because now you can lose and you can still remain on the pound for pound list. And at the end of the day, there's no excuses in the sport. If you go into a different weight class and you lose, it doesn't cover up the loss. You still lost, and if the pound for pound list is based on popularity or how much money you bring in, then why don't we bring in YouTube guys into the pound for pound list, and then other popular YouTubers should be on there as well. I still believe the pound for pound list is about being best for pound in boxing, not the most popular or the biggest ticket seller or the biggest ratings driver. I think it's really about being the best in the sport. And at the end of the day, I think right now there's a couple of guys on there that haven't been proving that.
It sounds like, from what you're saying, Dmitry and yourself and the team would prefer to take away any excuse of the weight if it goes in the rematch. Is that Dmitry's position as well? That, look, I'll do 168 if it means there's no excuses. Yeah,
that's one thing. And listen, we'll be honest. And the motivation to try to fight for the titles. That will make it, and for everybody, for the fans as well, and for the network, for the zone, for the promoters. At the end of the day, that's the undisputed fight. That makes that fight even more enticing. Otherwise, we have the Beterbiev option. He might have to fight Smith before that, but at the end of the day, whoever wins that fight, that option is available, and that fight is undisputed. So why would Bivol want to take a chance at 175 with Canelo? Canelo is a serious fighter. He could take one shot and land one big shot and knock somebody out, and there's no doubt that can happen with anybody. That can happen with Dmitry as well. So why should he risk that if he can just go fight Beterbiev and put himself in the history books again by being undisputed? So it's just kind of like we have to weigh that out and see which option is better. And I think, right now, from what I'm hearing from Dmitry, he's just kind of leaning towards just going towards Beterbiev because he's already done Canelo. That's kind of behind us and that's kind of past us. That's something that Canelo really needs, in my opinion.
With Beterbiev, has there been any contact?
Yes, we were talking about trying to possibly make the fight happen this summer already. But then the Smith thing happened, and to be honest with you, it didn't seem like there was really the finances that are necessary to make everybody happy and to make everybody satisfied, including both sides. It's still a really tough fight. It's a 50-50 fight in my opinion. I know Dmitry wins, but objectively it's a 50-50 fight. And at the end of the day, it has to make sense. Both guys are, in the pound for pound list, Dmitry and Beterbiev. So it's two top guys fighting each other, and it has to really be backed up by all the, not only even finances, but even backed up by the fans, backed up by the attention. So I think that's really just now that's getting there. And that's why I think it hasn't happened yet, but it's about to.
Location-wise, where do you think that fight would have to land for the finances to make sense?
Well, right now it seems like the UAE or the Saudi arenas that have been coming together and bringing a lot of money to put big fights together. I think those are the options, but even if it had to happen in the United States, even like Madison Square Garden, I think would be a lot of. There's a lot of people there, and there's a lot of real boxing fans that really go there for the sport. They go to the arena for the sport, and they go to the arena for an intriguing fight, and this is one of those. So I think that it can happen anywhere. Just really, it's a lot about the network, and it's really about the fight being already cooked up enough, and boiled enough for everybody to really want to see it.
We had Artur Beterbiev over for the Anthony Yarde fight. Brilliant fight, violent fight. What did you make of what we saw from him? Some people were maybe suggesting he'd maybe lost half a step, but still won, still got the stoppage. What did you think?
Well, he won. You can't take anything away from him. He's a really, really hard-punching, aggressive, strong, wins his fights. He's fought a lot of guys in the division. The fight was back and forth, which kind of downgrades him a little bit, but it doesn't take away from his victory, because everybody has different styles, and if he has to do what he did to win the fight and win it by knockout, you can't say that he did anything wrong. That's part of his strategy, that's part of his style, and I think that's the way he fights. But for some guys watching, and some guys. Or some guy out there like Dmitry who's watching and thinking about fighting him, I think it's good to see that fight or that type of fight and see the type of mistakes that Artur sometimes makes.
Well, I've got you here. I wanted to ask you about how you got going in boxing, because even in your late 20s, you're managing guys like Provodnikov and Postel and people like that. How did you get your start?
I used to box a little bit. Not professionally. I had like a couple amateur fights when I was a kid, and I was always training at Wild Card. I came to when I moved to the United States, I came to Wild Card when I was like 11, 12 years old, and I met Freddie, and there was Boris Zakhanov, who was a trainer from Russia, from the Soviet Union, that was training, one of the trainers working at Wild Card Boxing, and we all just kind of became friends. And then Boris was training Roman Karmazin, and I was about like 17, 18 years old, maybe 19, when Roman Karmazin became a world champion. And I just kind of was always surrounded by boxers, always surrounded. I saw Manny Pacquiao training, Klitschko, Tyson. So, I saw all these guys and kind of was always just intrigued by that and excited. At one point, German Titov, who was a promoter back then as well and still is a promoter, we were friendly, and he actually was the first person to who told me, why don't you just get involved with boxers? Well, maybe you can help us somehow and maybe we can work together. And I started helping. And Ruslan Provodnikov was one of the first boxers that we worked together on, to be honest. And he was a success. Ruslan achieved a lot, and I think it just kind of started from there and went on and on.
We see you now as one of the most renowned managers in boxing, but when you're young and you're getting started like that, how fast did you have to learn, and did you make mistakes along the way?
No doubt. When I think anything you start, you get your experience by making mistakes. So the first probably 5-7 years we had to go through different things and just kind of learn the business and understand it. And it's one of those businesses that no matter how much you learn, you probably have to keep on learning because it's a tough business. It's a tough industry. Everybody always says that, but nobody really kind of clarifies what it is. But you have to have a special approach in this business in order to not only survive but to be successful. And it's very important to try to be cold-blooded, and it's very important to not let your emotions take over you, because sometimes the sport, all of us are fans as well, so we're all kind of also rooting for different athletes, whether it's our athletes or other athletes, or trying to make sure they achieve something. And while we're doing that, sometimes we make mistakes in the business part. So it's important to always just remember that it's not only a sport, it's also a business, and it's also you have to have that business approach.
It's like the Wild West boxing. It's not very well governed, I'm sure you'll agree with. And we've seen horror stories of fighters signing bad management deals or promotional deals and stalling their careers. You're here in this business. What, in your opinion, makes a good boxing manager?
I think it just the same thing as what makes a good person, to be honest with you. Because I think if you've got good values, like moral, ethical values, if you got honesty, and if you're really there for your guys, if you're there because you're working with promoters, you're working with sponsors, you're working with TV networks, and if you're there on the side of the boxer, then things are okay. Because some other guys, they try to play and try to be good with everybody and try to make sure that everybody's satisfied. And obviously, being good with everybody is okay, but your fiduciary duties with the boxer and with your team. And I think that's what's important. And if you stay that way, then you can go through all the obstacles and you can overcome everything. It's basically being a team, working together with your side of the industry.
You've had some big nights in boxing, but if I had to ask you for the three most memorable nights that you've had in this sport, which ones would you pick out? Which ones come to mind?
With my guys, with some guys that we worked with? Number one is definitely Provodnikov Bradley, and I can even, to be honest with you, I don't even think that can be overcome. Even if we've ever had a bigger fight, like tomorrow or in the future, and something more exciting, for me, it wouldn't overcome that fight, because that fight happened. That was one of the first experiences I had where we came into a fight like not fully prepared, not believing really that we can achieve and that we can win the fight, but doing everything that we can to get that win. And then everything that happened in that fight, and then boxer, fight of the year and all those achievements, and then going to fight Alvarado for the world title, everything that came after that, and then that fight brought to us, or opened for us the opportunities, that was just unbelievable. And I think just the level I was at, I won't be at that level and have something like that happen again. Another fight that always stands out is when Dmitry Bivol knocked out Daniel Jacobs, which was another fight where everybody was kind of treating us as an opponent. Like some guy is coming in, and it shouldn't be a tough fight for Jacobs and this and that, but he basically just went straight through him, and I always remember that. And again, it was like one of the first times where I had that kind of experience, and that's why I think it'll always be in my memory. Third fight is definitely Canelo Bivol, because when I walked into the ring after that fight, and when Dmitry got his hand raised, Dmitry later told me, he's like, you should believe in us, we won the fight. And I'm like, listen, I had no doubt that we won the fight. There's 100%, and I didn't even have any doubt that we were going to win the fight before the fight happened. But I was just very, very happy and emotional that we got the decision, because it's really hard to get that decision sometimes, especially if you don't get a knockout or something like that, or get many knockdowns. But we did a lot of work, and we try to do everything we can to get a fair shake in that fight. And as fair as it was, Dmitry did his part of the work and won the fight, and didn't leave any doubts for anybody. And that was something that was very special. That's something that I'll remember for the rest of my life.
Even though you won comprehensively, we know what boxing can be like. Was there a bit of you that was still holding your breath at that moment before the scorecards?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. When I was walking in the ring, I felt like, he didn't knock him down, he didn't knock him out. I'm like, they're just not going to give it to us. They're just not going to give it to us. That's where my confidence was like kind of broken. But when we did get it, when I realized that we got what we deserved, it was just an unbelievable feeling.
Just to go back to Bradley Provodnikov, that coming early in your career and the fight it was, do you remember how many rounds in it was that you lost your voice at ringside?
I don't remember exactly. I remember one moment that was pretty interesting, that was pretty exciting. I think it was there's a third round or the fourth round. There was something where he went down. I think it was like the second knockdown. The first knockdown was in the first round, and then the third or the fourth round. And at the end of the round, when Ruslan came back, I'm like, Ruslan, I basically told him, everything's good, you won. And Ruslan was like, in that moment when he heard me, because he was also tired and he was like a little bit out of it, he starts getting up because he thought they stopped the fight. And I already told him, you won already, But what I was trying to say is, like, it doesn't matter what the decision is, it doesn't matter how this ends. You're already the winner, because you already did what nobody expected. You've overcome yourself. You overcame everything. All the obstacles that you had in this fight, you've already won. And it's like, I'll never forget that. And we remember that with him sometimes, basically remembering that, he basically was ready to stop, get disqualified and stop the fight because of what I told him in between rounds. But it's a lot of moments in that fight, a lot of moments in that fight. And to me, he still won that fight in the first round by disqualification of Bradley when he knocked him down, and when Bradley got up and fell down again. I mean, to me, that was already the victory that Ruslan should have deserved. The referee didn't see it the way that we saw it. But listen, it all worked out to the best. After that, he still, with that loss, he got more attention than if he won that fight in the first round.
Well, Vadim, it's just about half an hour there, so we'll wrap it up. But thank you for speaking at ID Boxing, and we'll catch you soon.